The wisest aspects that our father taught us is leaving your ego at the door. Our entire company is designed around a we mentality. I'm not the president. I'm not the CEO. I'm an equal owner with my two brothers. If I want to take the company a certain direction, I have to get buy-in from my brothers. You actually have to swallow your pride.
Welcome to the Masters of Business podcast with Daniel Beer.
Hey, welcome back. This is Masters of Business, and today we have a very special guest I met at probably one of the most impactful business get-togethers that I've ever been a part of. The kind of person that just not only was in the room automatically making it better, but contributed to the room at such a high level. And I knew this was someone I needed to not only get to know for myself, but I needed to bring to you. So welcome to the show, Nick Sansone of Sansone Group. Just listen up here because we're going to get into a lot, and this is going to be an awesome conversation. But let's just get the business highlights out of the way here really quickly. $12 million. Excuse me. 12 million square feet. Okay, let's edit that. 12 million square feet under construction. They're a development company in the commercial retail space, commercial centers, and that is a gigantic amount that they have actively going right now. They have an additional 8,000 acres that's ready to break ground on, plus 56 million square feet in the pipeline. Welcome here. $10 billion portfolio, by the way, current real estate value. And we have Nick Sansone from the Sansone Group. My brother, how are you? And welcome.
What's up, Daniel? Good to be with you.
Are you
Doing
glad
well.
we got all that out of the way?
Yeah, you did a great job with it.
You're like, man, there's so many more interesting things about me. No, but seriously, what you guys have built is amazing. And just to jump right into it, it's a family business. And the first thing, that popped into my mind that I wanted to ask you is that has to be different. Like there has to be some potholes, some obstacles, some issues that arise in a business like yours that maybe doesn't in a business like mine that was not founded as a family business. This was founded by your father, if I'm not mistaken. And he has since passed, and it's amazing watching you tell his story on your channels, Instagram, and so on. Guys, you should go and follow him there. But I'm curious as far as what comes up in that environment where you're leading this business, gigantic business, alongside two brothers, and how you guys, I mean, you guys seem to love each other, but what comes up? There has to be things that arise in an environment like that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think for your listeners that are in family business can understand that it's a unique model that you don't understand unless you're in it. And I think it can be one of the greatest blessings that you can ever have in business. And then it also can be one of your greatest downfalls. And so when I think of what comes up with family business, think about it like this. If you have siblings, and you grow up with your siblings and you're outside and you're playing around and you're wrestling or whatever else, like you're not going to listen to your sibling tell you what to do.
Sure.
You're going to hold your position. It's your brother, it's your sister. You're going to do what you want, when you want, and whatever they're going to say, it doesn't really matter. It's your brother, your sister. Well, when you go into a business with them, you have to take your family hat off and you got to leave your emotions aside and realize that this is a business partner. My father used to always say to me, you need to treat your brothers like they're a board of directors. You report to them no differently than you would report to a board. And so if you're able to separate that family dynamic and treat them with the same mutual respect that you would treat a board member, a CFO, a CEO, then it could become a great blessing. Because if you can get through that obstacle when you are in the trenches and when things are going really bad, that's when the brotherly aspect, for me, it's my work with my brothers. That's when you're growing up as a kid and you're out in the backyard and you're wrestling and everything else, that's when the family aspect actually comes into play because there's nobody you want to be in the trenches with than your own family.
Hmm.
So we have things going bad, which we have all the time in the real estate business. You know that, your viewers know that. Things go south constantly. We're impacted by everything going on in the world, tariffs, interest rates, COVID, et cetera. And so there is no better partnership than to be aligned with your family when you're in the trenches. So for us, we look at it as a great blessing.
What's interesting about that is like business, and I didn't expect to go here so quickly in this conversation, but like, what is all this, right? Business is really just this space in which like things arise and they're a reflection of life. Like people constantly talk about how, or there's it's kind of a catchphrase that business is a spiritual journey, but what does that really mean? And it's a mirror for life in so many ways. And we can go down that path on in this conversation. You know, I love that. But what you reminded me here really quickly of is I've noticed, if we come out of business but keep the heart of the conversation you just brought up, it's are you talking to your children, your spouse, your parents, the people closest to you? It's interesting to watch and observe how you might speak to them in a way that you'd never imagine. Like you walk into a restaurant, my goodness, you're kind. You say hello, you say goodbye, you say thank you say please, you smile, and we somehow go then into the space with the people we love the most and speak to them not only poorly, but in a way that you genuinely wouldn't imagine speaking to 99.9% of the population.
Mm.
It's just
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. You get very casual with it, and you don't think about it. And, words are powerful, words are piercing. And so when you're in a family business, you really have to be cautious how you speak to one another. And I think we do a pretty good job of doing that. It's funny too, though. In a family business, I mean, we've literally had scenarios in the past where it's like come to blows. Like there have been wrestling
Like
matches,
actual blows.
actual blows, actually like wrestling my dad through my one brother over a chair. I mean, there is stuff that has gone down, but we've been around for 68 plus years. So I'd like to say we're past all of that now. We've learned how to deal with each other. You learn what battles you're going to go for and what battles you're just going to let go, really choosing your battles. And, I think one of the greatest or the wisest aspects that our father taught us, which I think goes for any business, especially though with family, is leaving your ego at the door. And our entire company is designed around a we mentality. If you see our boardroom and our conference room, it's round. There's no head. Our father did that by design. So it's all about collaborations. One of our core values is teamwork. And so even when you look at our ownership structure, like, I'm not the president. I'm not the CEO. I'm an equal owner with my two brothers, and that's how it's always been structured. And so I think from the top down, there's this idea of collaboration, and it's always about we. If I want to take the company a certain direction, I can't just do that. I have to get buy-in from my brothers. Now, there's three of us, so we have a deal where we always say majority vote, right? But think if you're the minority on that vote. Think if you're the one brother that voted one and the other two guys are wanting to go a certain direction. You actually have to swallow your pride. Be like, well, these two guys think we need to go this direction, so we're going to go that direction. So it's a constant check of the ego and staying humble. And it's one of the aspects I think that is one of our greatest strengths is that idea of we have to leave the ego at the door or we will not be able to make a decision.
But so you have to share with me either that story, what caused that fight, or a
Oh, there's
story that you just would love to
all kinds
share. But I need at least one of them.
of gosh, what caused it? Here, I'll tell you one. I'll tell you one. So it was, we have what we call this actually, we didn't actually get in a fight, but it was very close. We have a principals meeting every Thursday. That's what we call it. Where the three of us get together and now a lot of our team members as well. And we just go over everything that's going on in the company. Our job as brothers is to bring in new business. So we talk every week and we just talk about the new business that we're all working on and we just bring each other up to speed. And my brother Doug had said, hey, it's getting a little stale. We always do principals meeting at the office. We always do it in our father's office. And our father, even though he's passed on, we kept his office the same. And so we go in there and we meet. It's like, I think maybe we should go have breakfast somewhere and it'd just be nice to get out of the office. So, we go to this nice restaurant here in St. Louis about 7 in the morning for a nice meeting with each other. We get some nice coffee. And me and the oldest brother, Jim, I think we were literally talking about like who we're gonna have involved in HR. Like one of the something that's not,
Like
you know,
nothing.
a make or break decision for the
Yeah.
company, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened, but in a matter of minutes, we were standing up in the middle of the restaurant in each other's faces. Okay. Said to me, "Go ahead and make a move." He goes, "Make a move. You think you're tough? Make a move. Let's see what you can do." I said, "You make a move." And then we're just going back and forth right in the middle of the restaurant. My brother Doug leaves. He said, "I'm done with you guys." He leaves. Jim and I end up going out in the parking lot, screaming back and forth at each other. We get in our cars. We drive back to the office. We're screaming at each other, going up the elevator. Then he goes into his office. I go into my office. And about like an hour later, I just buzzed him on his phone. I said, "Hey, man, we good?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's all good." And it was over. But that one actually didn't go to blows, but we were, nose to nose in the middle of a restaurant. But like, it's your brothers. And it's kind of that's the fun part of it is you get in an argument, you get heated, you get passionate. An hour or two goes by or a day goes by, you just pick up the phone and you know, shoot the crap and everything's good again.
So what's the division of labor then? Because I could imagine this world in which everyone's in charge, so no one's in charge.
Yeah, it's a good point. It this is good maybe for your folks that are listening to this on how we used to be structured versus how we are now. Before we were structured where each of us had a division within the company. We're a full service real estate firm. So like somebody oversaw property management, another guy oversaw brokerage, another guy oversaw development, and like every single area in the company from IT to marketing, one of us oversaw. And what that did is it created an environment where no one felt they could make a decision unless their last name was Sansone, unless they were a family member. Because the way we had structured it is we were directors of every single department. Well, if you want to grow and you want to scale, that's not efficient. So we've since over the last decade really transitioned out of that and put people in place of our positions as directors of property management. We have a COO now. We've got a director of finance. We have a director of brokerage, all the different areas. And our responsibility, me, Jim, and Doug, is all new business, bringing in new business wherever we can find it. And we just work in silos. Doug's doing his thing. I'm doing my thing. Jim's doing his thing. And we naturally just fall into certain roles. Like for me, naturally, I'm doing a lot or involved a lot in our industrial ground up development. But Jim and Doug also are involved in that because we have investment committees every week where we go over major decisions of those developments. But I get a little bit more in the weeds on some of those. And each of us just find our place and then we connect every week and go over it all.
Really good. Really, really good. So what's your superpower, so to speak, in business? I mean, I find that a lot of us, we're really good at a lot of things, but there's one or two,
Yeah.
maybe three where you're just lethal, right? Like, what's your thing?
I think you hit on it earlier when you said, well, what's this whole thing about? What's this whole business about? Like, what are we really doing here? And I think that our superpower comes from what motivates us in the real estate space and how we look at it. And for us, it's genuinely continuing a legacy that was started by our father. You know, he came from absolutely nothing, total humble beginnings of this business that we had the luxury to walk into. And he raised us to be like, look, you can walk into a business that's great, but you've got that opportunity. You have to take full advantage of it and have it grow tenfold, 20-fold, 30-fold. And so when we're thinking about like growth, sure, we all want to be successful. We want to be profitable. We want to make money, but we're thinking far beyond that. We're thinking about continuing the legacy our dad started. We're thinking about creating our own legacy from the foundation that he built. And with real estate, we don't look at it like real estate. We are going into communities. We're aligning with communities and what their interests are. And we're helping improve communities through our developments. We're providing jobs. On the brokerage side, we say this all the time. When you're finding office space for a company. Okay, you could just look at it as you're finding office space, go do a 5-year deal, sign it, and make your fee. Well, you're providing a space where that company is going to work on their legacy. It could be an
Yeah.
individual that's going to work on his dreams or her dreams. It could be a business that's going to be the foundation for that person's family to put their kids through school, to give their kids a new foundation. So it's like, I think real estate is such an interesting game because we're impacting lives, we're touching communities, we're providing jobs, and it's so intimate and you're involved in all of that. So, from a superpower standpoint, I think that we lead with our heart, we lead with integrity, and our purpose is far, far beyond making a dollar.
Really good. And I'm seeing that because you're now even starting to create opportunities for people not in development, but that would like to be, don't think they can be,
Exactly.
but really they can. And we'll revisit that. But it's or why don't we go there now? Share how, you know, just go there because I just think it's so interesting how multi-layered that is. Like the thing we tell ourselves, like, oh, I see an opportunity, but it's not for me. And then you're helping them realize, no, it actually might be, and it doesn't take nearly as much as you think you do. And look, I've never looked into what it takes to do a, $30 million deal. Never looked into it. There's just assumption that keeps me from the deal. And so you've recognized that you're solving it for a lot of people. I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about superpower, we all have a voice, every one of us, that tells us you can't do that, and that is just the ego getting in the way, right? And so I think a superpower for anybody out there, for anyone that's in business, is to really go inward and do the personal development. And I think that creates the type of leader you're going to be. And I think it oftentimes dictates what kind of success you're going to have. And so the reality is like, there's nothing special about us. There's nothing special about me or my brothers or anything else. I would say the thing that separates somebody that's doing some deals and having some success versus somebody that isn't is the ability to deal with that voice that tells you you can't. So I think we've done a pretty good job of hearing that voice and saying, no, I can't. And that's because we were raised the right way. We were loved by our parents. That gives you a lot of confidence. So, I do like to pass that on to other guys in the real estate space about, yeah, you can go do a 30, 50, 60, $100 million deal because we were in that spot before where we thought we couldn't do those kind of deals because every deal we did, we just funded ourselves. And those other deals that were too big, we just pass up. And reality is we got lucky. We ended up doing a joint venture with Goldman Sachs. We didn't know what the heck we were doing when we structured that deal, but we learned as we went. And from that time to today, we've done 30 JVs. We've worked with 20 different institutional groups, but like, it's not that complicated. It's if you've got the right piece of real estate, if you've got the right deal offering and you just know how to package that deal and how to market yourself, anybody can align with that institutional capital. But all of that is just mechanics, and how to get it done. And I explain that a little bit with what I'm putting out there with that course, which is cool. But the more important piece is dealing with that voice that tells you you can't. And it's like, that's the only thing that separates really, I think, the winners from those that hold themselves back.
So what about your current voice? Because it never ends, by the way. I think some people
It does
hear
not.
someone like you, and you've accomplished so much, and they think, oh, cool. Well, he used to have a little voice inside him saying X, Y, Z. He no longer does. He's there. No, you're not. No, I'm
Nope.
not. No, we are not. And so, what are you
Never
learning about
stops.
yourself right now? What is going on the in like, what's the, is this so connected to
Epic.
this idea of like business being a spiritual journey? This is a different way of asking, what does that mean to you? But what are you learning right now that you didn't even see it coming, say, a year or 2 ago?
I'm learning how often that voice pops up and how not real it is. Okay.
Really?
I'll give you an example. This this course that I'm putting together.
Okay.
Daniel, literally every 2 weeks, the voice in my head, what are you doing? What are you doing putting together a course? Who are you to teach stuff? You don't know what you're doing. You've never done this before. Like all of it. The only difference that I've learned, and it's just from trial and error, and it's just from being around, I guess, in life and going through it enough times, is that that voice is literally just part of the process whenever you do something new that you haven't done before. And so when you get comfortable with the process, whatever it is you're going to do, when you're going to go start something new that you've never done, I don't know the first thing about teaching a course. I know a lot about real estate. So I got people that can help me on how to teach a course, how to put it together, and I think it's going to be a pretty damn good product. But I'll tell you, I have that voice pop in all the time. The reason it doesn't impact me is because I know it's part of the
Yeah.
process. Anytime you go for something that you haven't done before, I don't care who you are, you're going to have that voice, and it's all on how you handle the voice.
Is that voice what they call ego?
I would call it ego. Yeah, I would 100% call it ego because what it ultimately is fear of failure, right? It's fear of not delivering the way you think you should. And so, what is all that? Why is there a fear of failure? Why is there a fear of not delivering? Why is there a fear of your product's not going to be that great? There's all that fear there because you've got this ego. You want to please everybody. You want to make sure it's good. When you get rid of all that BS, and you just know that your purpose and your why is rooted in a foundation of integrity and truth, like you talked about it, truly wanting to provide value and knowledge to people that back when we did our first JV, it literally wasn't around and we didn't know what the heck we're doing. And secondly, by the way, it's a great business opportunity for us because we can come across guys that are out there, gals that are out there that are doing deals that maybe don't know how to put them together. And they may call us and say, hey, let's go do the deals together. So when your purpose is rooted in a place of truth, all that other stuff doesn't mean a damn thing. And you just got to bull through it.
Well, let's stay there with integrity. It's such an interesting concept. It's a word so loosely thrown around, and yet I don't think most people truly know what it means, like what it
Mhm,
really means.
mhm.
And I've been playing a lot with this, spending a lot of time in it, really just trying to feel and feel and feel like what is that? How just
Yeah,
feeling how integrity feels. And I think people think, I mean, it's like don't lie, steal, and cheat. Sure, but I think it's so much more than that, right? Like I think it's really just being connected to like what is your soul really meant for? What does it vibrate? Like feeling how it feels to be you, just being that. Not getting away from that voice that you just called ego and learning how to just sink into like the truth of what you're here to do, what you're here to be, and just being like truly being in that space. And I think it's integrity with your purpose, with your divine meaning, right? Like what you really are, so to speak. But I'm curious for you to go there. Like, what do you hear? When I even first said, "What is integrity really?" You're nodding, you're smiling. So, how do you digest that word?
well, you nailed it. I wrote down being unapologetically you. And something you said, I think, is critical. You said your soul's purpose. I think those are the words you used, or something around the soul. And I oftentimes think about this because my faith is really important to me, and I have a belief in God, and I believe God's behind all that I do. And I oftentimes will pray that my will be the will of God, which for others, it might be the will of your soul, right? And so it's getting quiet and tapping into what your real purpose is, not your ego, right? Not the stories we've told ourselves, not the things, the experiences that have shaped what we think we ought to be, but deep down who we really are. And when you get quiet and you get into that, I think integrity is honoring that unapologetically because it takes a lot of strength and courage to honor that. Because oftentimes, honoring your true self, your true soul's calling, it's going to piss people off. Some people might say you're crazy. Some people might say, what the heck's he doing? Who do they think they are? So it takes a lot of courage. And I think that's what I think integrity is, being unapologetically you and honoring it.
So you said your will is the will of God.
I pray that my will be the will of God, which another way of saying it, that my intentions, my desires, my goals, my aspirations are aspirations from my soul. They're not aspirations from the ego. And ultimately, I think those aspirations from the soul are what God planted in us to do here on earth.
I think that works really well with, an understanding that I've been arriving at, which is that like we're a we're a vessel through God to express himself, itself. It's
Yes, we are.
we are we are a vessel for God to express and touch other people to experience this world that we're in, and it's
Of
just
course.
interesting the way you phrase that. Your will is the will of God. I think that works really, really well. When you said you like to get quiet and go there, is that meditation? What space do you go to?
Yeah, it's meditation. It's now, I was someone that never could meditate. I mean, I did every app, and I'm telling you, I couldn't sit for 10 minutes. I've got ADHD like probably a lot of us, and I'm telling you, I couldn't do it. And I came across this meditation called Nam,
Say that again. Spell that.
NAAM, and it is absolutely incredible. And my practice is now gone up to about an hour and 20 minutes
Daily.
and daily. And I try to do it every morning. I actually didn't do it this morning, but I will do it. I'll go home and I'll do it in the afternoon or evening. I'll find the time. But and I've been doing that now for about 4.5 months. It started at about, I think, at 20 minutes, and then we keep adding to it. And that really allows me to get centered. And then after I do that, and after I'm in that space of real quiet, that's when I will also start saying some prayers, asking, asking that that my desires be God's desires for my life. And I'll tell you, it's been game changing. And I'll send you the gentleman that teaches it. It's remarkably powerful from a meditation practice, and it's all to a mantra, and it's to music, and it's all about the inhale. The exhale is a very slow exhale. You don't even realize it. It's sometimes like 30 seconds, but you're doing it to a mantra, so you don't even think about it. Like, I could never sit there and just inhale and someone tell me to exhale for 30 seconds, I go crazy. But when I'm doing it to this not mantra and doing it to this music, it's game changing.
It's really, really very cool. Very cool. And meditation is, I think, so wildly misunderstood. It's people mostly think of it as a space to go to sort of clear the mind and think of nothing. But there's an aspect of that. But what you're really doing is disconnecting from, you're liberating yourself from your active mind, from the ego, from what's going on up here, and sinking into a place where you could really feel and really kind of connect to that divinity, so to speak. And there's actually a lot of work that goes on in meditation. It's a very active process. You talked about, that's where you end up in prayer, or that's where you end up in that's where you process a lot. So we'll come back over here to
A lot of ideas that come through the meditation too. You're right. There's a lot of downloads that come in, and it what it does is it cancels out the noise. And so I think it really fine tunes your intuition, which you really need in business. Think about all the different opportunities that may come across your desk in a day, or things you think about that you might want to pursue. You got to have the intuition to decipher between what you're going to go for, what you're not going to go for, who you're going to partner up with, who you're not going to partner up with, what deals you're going to pursue. So I think, that it's a direct correlation to your performance in business and in life, and you're fine tuning that intuition skill because you're canceling out all the noise.
and there's such an this is a fascinating concept, because there is such a fine line between understanding, is that my intuition
Yes.
or is that fear? Is that my intuition saying, "Hey, steer clear of that. That's not where you want to be. That's not the energy you want." Or is it my ego saying like creating fear away from that, away from growth, away from something new. And it's a fine line. It's a similar vibration, but different. And when you and that's what's so valuable about a meditation practice is that you learn to feel how intuition, how your true self, how your soul, how that really feels. And so you can decipher that from the mind, from ego.
100%. You're exactly right.
Very interesting. I was thinking,
Well
let's
said.
take a wild left turn here for a moment. So you called it a download. A download from where? From what?
For me, it's the Holy Spirit, it's God.
So think I've been thinking a lot about, what is it when people say that God spoke to them as an example? What does that mean? What is it? Because God's a very loaded word. A second we say
It is
God,
a loaded word.
there's this imagery of this
Yes,
man who comes down from
I
the
know.
sky and he's got a huge beard and a big robe and a staff and and you're talking to this guy.
I know.
But if we remove the word and just replace it for a moment with something like source or spirit, and we think of Moses, for example. He's in the desert. He's there for years, and he doesn't have an iPhone to distract him. He doesn't have, he's not there with, his 50 friends to just talk and like goof off. He's there with himself. So how deep into himself does he go to download to this insight, this wisdom to go back and help and liberate his people? And so it's just, I think that's absolutely available to everybody, but you have to
100%.
create that space.
Well, 100%. And I believe, and you mentioned that about God. I think that's so interesting because I think people get very caught up in the words that are used. And I understand it because if someone has had a bad experience with religion, they associate the word God with religion, right? And then folks that, might be very much into their Christian faith, they'll associate the word source as something that isn't God. At the end of the day, call it whatever you want, right? It's we are all talking about the same higher power. And if someone wants to call it source, beautiful, and if someone wants to call it God, that's great too. But here's the reality. That power is in every single one of us. And it's just a matter of tapping into it. And so how do you tap into it? Well, to me, it's common sense. You got to get quiet. You got to tap into that power that's inside you, that voice that's in you. For me, I call that the Holy Spirit. I call that God. Others may call that Christ consciousness. Others may call that source. Other may call it your inner voice. Others might call it your third eye. Whatever we call it, it's in all of us. And it's just how you tap into that.
It's awesome. Very, very cool. So I have a totally different type of question for you. Because earlier, I encouraged people to head over to your Instagram, connect with you. They're going to notice something about you. You're one of the best dressed men in the game, period. And I'm just curious if this is something that like you just happen to enjoy and it just sort of happens, or if it's a conscious decision, like tied to you know, any way in which you more consciously are trying to impact the people around you or yourself, or it makes you feel one way versus another, or it just kind of happens.
It's a deep question. It's a good question. So, well, first, I'll give you the easy answer is that, my we were raised by our dad who always talked about the importance of presentation. And he had such humble background that he had to find a way to differentiate himself. And one of the ways he did that was by how he dressed. And the presentation of that first impression oftentimes made a big difference. So he talked to us about the importance of the first impression. Now you might say, well, that's driven an ego because you want people to think you look good or whatever, but the way of the world is people make first impressions when they first meet someone. So if you have an opportunity to make a positive impression by expressing yourself in a way through style, then do so. So for me, it's an expression of sort of my personality. I love style. It's a hobby of mine. I like Italian made garments, and it's something that's fun for me. but it's also for me, it's a way of respecting those around me and myself because it feels good to put on something nice. And I feel that it's almost like when we used to go to church on Sundays and we'd get dressed nice, and nice is different for everybody. You know what I mean? Nice could be a clean cut t-shirt and a pair of nice shorts. It doesn't matter, but whatever that is for you, it's like when we would go to church and we present ourselves nice for, nice for God, or we go to a nice dinner and we present ourselves nice in the restaurant. I think of it the same way. And then the last part of it, and this is where I get a little more, uh, as my brothers would say, kind of, you're getting all hippie on me now. But I think it's an energy thing, man. When I put on a nice outfit, I feel better. Genuinely feel better. And especially if it's nice fabrics. I'm talking about linens, cashmeres, silks, okay? And if you go in, I'm gonna get all weird on you, but if you go into the frequencies of these fabrics,
Yes, yes.
okay? I think anybody out there knows that there's for everybody's energy, right? There's energy with everything that's scientifically proven. If you go into the frequency of some of these fabrics, they have higher frequencies than others. And so a cashmere, a linen, a silk, a wool, I'm telling you for myself, there's an energy associated with that. And I cannot tell you how many times I've been in a bad mood. I wake up on the wrong side of the bed and I don't know what's up. And I just go put on what I think is a nice, pretty outfit with good fabrics or whatever. I feel better. So that's another reason
It's
why.
not a wild idea that
Yeah.
what you're draping your body in might affect you. I mean, for God's sake, the moon moves the ocean
Right.
and the tide.
So, yeah.
So maybe what's literally covering your skin has an effect. And this isn't, a belief I already carried before this, but just listening to it's like, well, if that's true about the moon, then maybe what's covering literally the biggest organ on your body, which is your skin, perhaps
Exactly.
matters.
And also too, um, it's I think it's a way to express your uniqueness, your personality, then so that's why I say it's like doesn't have to do with a sport coat or a suit. I mean, it legitimately could be casual wear. It's just up to the person. But yeah, the uh the Italian style, the suits, the sport coats, man, I'm into it. And so that's just a hobby.
So if someone heads over to your Instagram and connects with you, not only are they gonna see the way you're dressed, but they're actually gonna notice, and I've been wanting to ask you this for personal reasons just so that, I figure out if there's any adjustments I wanna make. I watch your videos and they'll notice what I'm noticing, which is they're beautifully put together. And so I'm sitting here watching like, when one of yours comes across my screen, and I'm thinking like, how is he producing this? Like, does he have a video crew with him 24/7? Is there a full editing team? Like, what's going on? Why are you doing it? And is it maybe far more simple than I think it is?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I've got a local guy here that helps put some content together, and then I've got uh, a husband and wife that has a company based out of San Diego, and they kind of manage things and kind of just do all of that. But the main reason I do that, it's a great question. I think that your social media page today is no different than having an email account or a website, right? And it's a way to brand yourself and market yourself to the world. And I think it's like when someone comes over to your home, like I think a home is a reflection of you. You want to have your home clean, you want to have it looking nice for when your guests come in. Same with your car, it's a reflection of how you run your life. I think the same thing is for your social media page. So I really want a small piece of content to be well crafted, well done, because I take that serious because it represents who you are. Anything you do, I think, regardless of what it is, however you do one thing, you're going to do everything else. And then on top of that, from the business side of it, it's a way to brand yourself. It's a way to market yourself. In the real estate space, and you understand this, the way we market ourselves is all the different conventions. We got one
Mm.
coming up, ICSC, all the different conventions we would sponsor so that all the brokers in the community or at the convention, they could see our name, right? Because you want to think when they have a deal or when they have an opportunity, you want to be first in mind. Well, my gosh, social media. I mean, that is like the new marketing. So it's just another way to grow your business, expand your business, get the word out. And what's so cool about social media is you can just from someone going and seeing your page, if they're thinking about maybe doing business with you, they can get an entire idea of what you're about, which is what I said earlier. When you're doing these partnerships or when you're working with different folks, you really want to have the intuition of like who you're going to choose to work with. So I take it really serious because it frankly can be a first impression you make on somebody when they go to your page.
That makes sense in terms of the first impression because it's like in real estate. My type of real estate, residential sales. When someone gets to the home, it's the second showing. The first showing took place online.
Bingo. You're exactly right. That sums up everything I just said.
So before we break here, um, I have one question that I ask every guest that comes on, and that has to do with decipher the fine line and understanding the difference between opportunity and distraction. We're going to go there in a moment, but we're talking about your Instagram. People are connecting with you. Nick Sansone, go find them. DM him if you're interested in doing a commercial deal, but you want to do it with other people's money. Nick, walk us through because we've mentioned a couple times your course, but I don't think there's a ton of clarity in terms of exactly what it is, and I don't want to be responsible for explaining it. So if someone does want to send you a DM or anything like that, in 60 seconds or so, what is it that you're putting together for who and why?
Yeah, it's for anybody that's in the real estate space, that's invested in real estate or has access to great deal flow and that has passed up an opportunity in real estate because they thought the deal was too big. And so what this does is this course shows you how to market your opportunity, and that could be a ground up development. It could be an existing asset that you're looking to buy, how to market that opportunity and how to market yourself and how to structure a deal with institutional capital. So what that means is if there's a $50 million deal and let's say you're going to get $35 million of debt and you have a $15 million equity check and you don't have $15 million sitting around.
Most people walk away and say, "Hey, this isn't for me. I don't have 15 million."
Exactly. This course will show you essentially for very little money out of your pocket, how you can structure a deal with an institutional partner that will fund the majority of that 15 million and you can ride along in the deal with them and get a promoted interest and everything else. So in short, it's how to put a deal together when you don't have the money yourself to do it, but you've got the deal or you've got access to the deal. And then in addition to that, we talk about negotiating, deal making, how to lead with your heart, the importance of core values. We do lessons learned with my brothers and I sit down and we talk about the teachings of our father. So there's a lot of those basic principles of just deal making, business, real estate, and all of that. There's an emphasis on industrial. We get into industrial a little bit on the ground up side of industrial. But at the end of the day, it's really for anybody that's in the real estate space that's looking to up their game because it's exactly what we did back in 2015 with Goldman Sachs, where we took our company from a successful business to, a top five developer in the United States as of today.
It's awesome, man. Really, really cool. And when you are a top 5 developer in the United States, there's so much I mean, so much sent to you. And even maybe from this podcast, "Hey, what about this? What about this?" So, this is the question I ask everybody, and it's awesome because they're all in different businesses when they come on this podcast. But at the end of the day, like, I'm a believer that one of the things we have to have is a framework or an understanding or a system or an intuition. I mean, everyone approaches it differently. How do you draw the line and say, "Hey, that's a distraction. That's an opportunity." How do you know what to chase and what to say no thank you to? And it, not having the ability to navigate that can put you years behind, can kill your business.
Yeah. It's a really awesome question. And it's honestly something that I work on weekly. Okay. And there's two things from a real estate perspective, in terms of what deals I'm going to go after versus not, there's matrix that we pay attention to. Okay. And that depends on whether it's a ground up retail deal, industrial deal, acquisition deal. So there are certain questions that I'll ask immediately to a broker about an opportunity where I can fish out in a matter of 5 minutes if it's something that we want to go after. Okay. But more importantly, what I try to do every single weekend, usually on Saturday, sometimes on Sunday, before the week starts, is I will take out a paper planner and I will go through every single opportunity that's in my mind, in my cell phone, on my email that I'm aware of, that I know of. And that could be, like you said, random people reaching out or whatever. And I'll think about that 80/20. I'll think about what is the 20% of all this junk that's going to be responsible for 80% of the revenue on our side. And I will get that organized on a piece of paper. And then what I do is every day I have three of those where if there's nothing else that I get done in that day, because you have those days, where you just don't want to do it, you're exhausted. I had it on Monday. I was shot. I just didn't have training for this half Ironman. I had to do like 3 workouts. I was exhausted. I wasn't in the mood. So all I did, I went to my planner, I opened it up, and I looked at those 3 things. It's like if you don't do anything else that day but those 3 things, your day's accomplished. And that's what I do every single week because without that system, what you just said is spot on. You're going to drown because there's opportunities all over the place. So you've got to take the time for yourself to organize those opportunities, to have some quiet time, to really figure out what of all these opportunities that I'm working on is going to be responsible for 80% of the revenue coming in.
So listen, guys, quiet time has now come up twice, okay, in a short period of time here. So look, we're not saying you need to go and meditate for an hour and become a yogi and move into a cave, but
Right.
you have to have a version of quiet time.
You do.
So maybe for you, that means you just step out of the office and take a 30-minute walk. Maybe it's just that. Maybe it's just that on Fridays you come in at 10 instead of 8, but you go somewhere very purposeful. You go sit in your favorite coffee shop, you put your phone on airplane mode, you sit there and you think. And so there has to be some space that you create. And that is on its own a real, true cliche here, game changing takeaway. If you go ahead and like really, really make that a part of what you're doing. Hey, Nick, I wanna just thank you so much for spending the time here. There's so much more that I'd love to ask you about. So maybe we're gonna have you back. It's what you're doing with Ironman, why you're doing it, the suffering that takes place in it, how you overcome it. And it's just so fun because all of this, all that we do out there in the Ironman and business everywhere is just to have things arise and then learn about ourselves and process them and see just see what comes up and really who you are. It's an amazing thing.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I want to say something about you as well. You're obviously, you know, very successful and very knowledgeable and good at what you do with the real estate space. But what I think is really unique about you that I noticed right away, and we were in a room of very high performers, some of the most high performers in the world, and you have a layer of depth to you and genuineness and authenticity that is very, very unique. And I think to have that or those type of traits in business are differentiators because, everyone can do what we do from a real estate side, right? It's not rocket science. You do it enough, you learn about good deals, what aren't good deals, how to maybe structure deals and stuff. But I think a real differentiator after you've got the knowledge, after you've been in the business a long time, is how you come off, whether you're leading with authenticity and genuineness and realness and heartfelt action, or whether you're a little bit full of it and up in the ego place. And so you really stood out to me by your depth and your integrity from honest to God to start. So it's been really fun to be on here with you, and I really appreciate it.
Man, thank you so so much. And I'm gonna hijack the final compliment, which is I wanted to honor the way that and a lot of people I think talk about, oh, we're gonna continue our family legacy, this and the no, it'll take people about two minutes on your social channels to understand that like you and your brothers, to their credit, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting them, but you really, really live it, really mean it. And guys, why does this matter to you? It might not be because of a family legacy. You might have started the business just, a month ago, a year ago. Yes, but it matters to you because you're seeing what purpose creates. And you just find yours, right? That they have theirs. You don't have to hijack theirs. But it is a great example of what having purpose beyond the deal, beyond the money, beyond the bank account, beyond the cars and the stuff creates. And so it's really an embodiment of be, do, have. And Nick, thank you so much, man. I can't wait to catch more up with you offline, and we'll talk soon, guys. If you've enjoyed this, we don't ask anything of you, by the way, other than just let other people know there's value here. The way you can do it so easily is just like, subscribe, and only because it lets the algorithm know that there's something good going on here and they might want to share it with others. And that's it. We'll continue bringing content. This is Masters of Business. We're out.